All right, we're live now.
Yes, hello everyone. It's 6 o'clock, and this is our special meeting of the Committee of the Whole, and we're live streamed electronically. So welcome to the public and our staff and council. We're going to begin our meeting as we have a first motion. It was moved by Klaus Vandermeer and seconded by Ian Straight. That the special meeting of the Committee of the Whole agenda dated November the 24th, 2020 be approved as circulated. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. I'll remind all of council that if you have any disclosure of interest, you can declare it now or any time during the meeting. Moving on, we have only one report, so it should be a very short meeting. Just kidding. Andrew, you're going to have this first report, and this is on the budget discussion. So I'm just going to quickly turn the whole discussion over to you first, Andrew.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. So good evening, Reeve Dobson and members of council. So tonight we're going to be looking at the 2021 first draft of the Montague budget. Didn't seem like that long ago. We were just doing 2020. So here we go again. Basically this evening, this is a follow-up to the meeting we had October 29th, about a month ago, where we first discussed the 2021 budget and took away some information. And now we've come back with proposed budgets to look at and discuss. So the idea this evening is to take everything we've inputted, review it, and we've also looked at trends of revenue and expenses to see what we should use. We started to incorporate things that we know of, and as we go and prepare the second draft, we'll have more information that's being confirmed that we'll add in. I suspect that tentatively we'll be having that meeting in 2021. I was lucky, I've heard back from a bunch of municipalities, different treasurers have been discussing their approach for this budget. And it sounds like most municipalities are looking at a 1% to 2% increase, basically looking to cover inflationary increases. Even though they know that the CPI for Ontario for all items is 0.7% to October, they feel that that might not adequately cover the expenses of a township municipality for 2021. So that's how they're starting off. And so I think from here, what we can do is review and discuss and record the consensus and any changes going department by department. And they're listed here. We could start with taxation and other revenue. And make kind of blend in the points that I've made in this first report as we across them by department. So you'll probably notice that this proposed budget is looking at a taxation increase of 3.9%. So what that would mean is if you took $100,000 of assessed value of a property with a 3.9% increase, it basically per $100,000 in assessed value, you'd see an increase of about $28.83. So that's what we're looking at there. That's just for the Montague portion, not for the education portion or the upper tier county portion. And I guess the thought to have as we go through this is this budget could also be a 0% increase if council gave that direction. So there's not any high pressure looking at the proposed increase at this point. And so we can basically look by department to see that we can do things efficiently and effectively. So,
Yeah, excuse me, Andrew, I have a question
Yes.
coming in from Karen, please.
So is it easiest as you go through, like, because you're talking about taxation, so is that the taxation report that you're on, so that as we have each report up, we ask our questions?
yes, I think we'll start there. So
So-
we'll do that now.
Yeah, so Andrew, like you're on page 1, right?
Right, so we can start with that one. It's heading is
Yeah.
taxation and other revenue.
Okay,
Because I know I did see the questions that you had forwarded to us from Karen.
Yep.
And I saw the questions and the answers, and I know some of those questions are they were
Oops.
I have duplicate questions regarding the same issues, Karen, and maybe
Yep.
some of the other councillors do too. But if we go through, I think page by page, then the questions can come up individually, I think, eh?
Yeah, and then we can hit on those
Is
as
that
we-
okay like that, Andrew?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so we're gonna start off then on that page, what you've got, page number 1. And that's where it starts off as the revenue taxation, right?
Right.
So
And
do
so
you have anything to say first, or can I just open it up to questions?
I can make a couple quick points and then I can look to
Okay.
questions.
Okay,
Just the obvious, if you look down there at the proposed budget column, it's the third column. You can see down where it says account 110-150-5055 penalty interest tax arrears.
yeah, that's the one I had circled.
Yeah, we had budgeted 100,000 in 2020. And for a couple of reasons. One is because it was a decision made from COVID-19 to not charge interest from May until end of October. That actual has decreased for this year. But also the outstanding and tax arrears have been decreasing. So I've initially proposed that revenue be decreased from 100,000 to 50,000. And that is flexible. That's a conservative number. And there could be a decision to use a more moderate number there, perhaps like 80,000, which would, as soon as that was changed to 80,000, you would decrease the requirement for that amount in the tax levy on the top line. So that's one point. And then one other quick point is under provincial grants, the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, 330,700 is the actual number that we'll be receiving in 2021. And then if there's any questions.
How much was that amount again?
So the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund for 2021,
Right.
receiving 330,700. It's in the middle of the page under
Yeah,
provincial.
I see that. But so that, what you were mentioning about the tax arrears, that COVID-19 funding that we're getting, it helps to offset that, right?
For 2020, it can. But for 2021, as we have a lower outstanding tax balance, there'll be less
Yes.
arrears to charge tax on as well.
Yeah, okay. So have a question from Karen.
so Andrew, on that one, on the penalty and interest, I know our tax arrears have come down a bit, but what was the amount we received in 2019 then? Because 2020 is definitely out of whack in the fact that we gave the relief because of COVID. So how much did we actually at year end receive for 2019?
I'll just pull that up here on the screen. It's in 2019, it was 86,000. And that was it's trending downwards. In the previous year, it was 120,000.
Right.
So I
So
believe it's trend down again.
Yeah, follow up, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe maybe the 50 is a little low, but then maybe somewhere around 75,000 would be a realistic number?
Yeah, and I made a note of that actually today, that might be one approach for the second draft.
Okay.
That's under the proposed budget?
Right, and then that alleviates that requirement for that amount
So,
from the top tax municipal levy line.
Yes, Karen.
so I have more questions in this one too, in this
Yeah,
category.
I just want to make sure that everybody's clear there. Then are we just red flagging that and putting in instead of the 50, what figure?
75.
75.
Okay, 75, is it, are we putting in 75 specifically, or because you were saying 80 or 85?
I think from a procedural standpoint, what we can do is council can make a note and
Just red flag it?
we'll make a note and we can bring it back with changes. I think we all have consensus from everybody and we can, like 75 is definitely a good starting point for that, so.
Okay.
Sorry,
So,
my
Karen,
disembodied voice.
I can't see you, Karen, Jasmine. Jasmine?
Yeah, I'll just pop in if you need me, so I'm good. I think we're good for direction for
Okay,
that one.
it's just, I don't see you though. I can't see, you're not on the screen. Okay, so Karen, I'll go back to you.
Just on then under the payments in lieu, Andrew, for the railway municipal portion.
Right.
We've received 62,000 this year. We put 19 in the budget. We put 19 again. Can you tell me again, what was the 2019? Just so that we're getting more realistic numbers versus just carry forwards of the budget. Because this is important for us to have a better reflection to know for if we're going to have a tax increase.
Okay, so actually, that's the full payment in lieu that gets invoiced to the railways. At year end, adjustments are made to apportion that between the county and the education. So that will be actually back towards what budget will be around 19,000.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Andrew, I just, in the same area there on that first page, I have a quick question that, under the penalty and interest tax, under the provincial offenses and bylaws line, it's about, the actual is about half. Is that because we haven't been paid yet, or why is that down so low?
We actually received correspondence from where that funding comes from, and they had told us in advance that number would be lower. There just are less provincial offenses to be collected on.
I see, that might be a trend that's happening anyways, but yes, Karen?
Oh, go ahead. So I just
Okay,
had
yeah,
another one afterwards.
I just, yeah, okay, that's clear. Any other questions?
Yep.
Karen, yeah.
So Andrew,
Go ahead.
does the general bank account interest at 20,000, again, does that accurately reflect compared to 2019? Because I mean, we're at 51.9, so 52 for this year.
Right, so we probably will finish 2020 around 58,000
Mm-hmm.
here. So that is another note I have that traditionally that line's being budgeted conservatively, but you could do a more moderate amount. You could also increase it closer to 50,000 probably safely. And that also is one of the reasons we can offset the tax increase that's proposed. And why I would say there's not a huge pressure, that there are adjustments here that can be made pretty easily that are realistic.
Okay.
So we could increase that to 50,000 for a second draft budget if there was consensus.
I think so.
I think so, I agree.
Hey, do we have consensus for that?
Yeah.
Claus, you have your hand up?
Yes, I would agree
And
with Karen.
Jeff?
Yep.
Okay, so you have consensus there. Now, do you have any other on this section, Karen?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, so now under the revenue, it's actually 2 pages. But and on that second page, it's a minor thing, but it might be a line that we can eliminate. Andrew, I'm just wondering, that chip wagon license, I remember a few years ago somebody applying for a chip wagon license, but we don't have any now, do we?
Yes.
Yeah.
We do. Where is it?
Highway
Oh, where
15,
is it?
Chips and Giggles.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I apologize. I forgot about that one. Okay, so Jeff, please.
I just want a quick question just about the levy increase, that 118.6. Like we're talking about a 3.9% increase on that, but like how much of that is also are we getting from our new builds and all that? Is that taken into account of that too as well?
I haven't addressed that yet. So there will be some increase. So I should quickly explain, MPAC's frozen their assessment 4-year phase-in cycle for 2020.
Yeah.
2021 would have been the start of the next 4-year cycle. So they haven't determined when they'll restart that. So you will see changes in the assessment base for things like farmland, wetland, and new construction, but you won't see it part of their overall 4-year CVA phase-in that they do. So, so to answer your question, there could potentially be some additional revenue just from new construction that I have not put in this proposed budget yet.
Okay, because I'm trying to think like, okay, like we're talking like 118,000, okay, but I mean new construction alone, I mean as going to equate to 50-ish thousand. What I've kind of figured out maybe a little bit more to the tax sort of revenue. So it's one of those things where like the shave down might also be like, we may only have to, like when we're talking about shaving down, not there's a lot of pressure because I think there's certain things that we can do, but we're talking about really maybe like 60K that has to be that would really be an increase if that was the case, right? Because I think the rest would be from the natural growth.
Yeah, and we'll be seeing the 2020 roll in mid-December from MPAC. So when we do our second draft budget, it'll be definitely definitive as to what we're using there.
Okay.
Still a few weeks away from that, or we could have included that now, and it probably will help in the way that you're describing. That should be what we expect to see.
Okay, so and just like hypothetically, if we shave off 60 or 70,000 tonight, I mean that's probably a good goal for us. Maybe not the full 120 if we want the 0%, but 60 or 70 would probably be a pretty good. And we're almost at 50 right now, so that's pretty good. So okay, I just want to clear that up. Thanks, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Okay. I think I saw Claus first, and then Ian.
No, it's okay. I was just agreeing with something that somebody said. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Ian.
So essentially, Andrew, if you take what Jeff has just mentioned, the additional levy money from the new builds and everything else like that, you take the offset that we're going to put the general bank account interest at, and the penalty interest, taxes, and arrears, and we increase those 3 things right there, that pretty much offsets the deficit that we're looking at for the tax increase. Is that correct?
Right. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's not even touching anything else below it yet.
Right. And then the discussion probably will move more into a slight increase that may be directed towards reserves could be a consideration towards the new municipal complex discussion and what to do with the buildings moving forward. The fire hall, the public works building, and the municipal administrative building. So just like I said, there is flexibility there. It's a good position to be in.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So I see no further questions on the revenue section. That's the first 2 pages. So if we can move on, please. to the expenditures. And now we're back to, if you're looking at the numbers on your page there, page 1 of the expenditures. And so Andrew, do you want to, any comments first, and then I'll open it up to questions?
Yes, so what you'll see in this department and moving forward is an increase for the cost of living, which the township personnel policy will use Ontario all items CPI from October to October each year. For the past year, it is 0.7%. It's quite low due to the economic situation with COVID-19 this year. And that's the number you'll see in here when it comes to things like wages and wage-related items. And then that's rounded as well. So other than that, in each department, you'll also see a slight increase in insurance. And a lot of the other numbers are very similar to the previous year council department. You can see that here. We've left in things like conferences and conference transportation in the optimism that next year those things can be utilized as they are intended, even though in 2020 they're not being used.
That very first line that you have there, that we have in front of us, the council remuneration wages, like there's a difference of $550, right?
Yes.
Is that assuming then that the council remuneration is going up at the same percentage?
Yeah, that would be the cost of living of a 0.7% increase.
That is if council wants their remuneration or wages to go up to keep pace with that, right?
Right. I think Jasmine wants to add a point there.
Yeah, we could choose to not put that in. I'm just saying if we wanted to. Jasmine?
Our policies do state that council gets the increase that is approved by staff. So it's automatic.
Yeah.
It's in our policy to be automatic.
But I guess my question is, do we have to take that?
No.
I mean, you could exempt your own policies as part of the budget process. But as of now, it's an automatic process in the policies.
Okay, thanks. So I have Claus and Ian and Karen.
I agree with Jasmine. It's in our policy and so forth, but at the end of this meeting, I think we should seriously consider possibly having a discussion about that, whether we take the increase or not, in order to keep the tax rate increase down.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a big bearing percentage wise. So Ian is next.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused about the policy, Jasmine. I guess the policy was to increase everything, but it didn't mean that we actually had to take it. Was my understanding.
Right.
And not
Okay,
only just staff as well.
Yeah. So it's also council's policies. You set it so you can exempt them.
Okay. Karen?
My question's not on the salaries, so. That okay?
Okay. Yes, I think so. We can move on.
So Andrew, in reference to the insurance, the small increase, do you know that that's the exact amount from our insurance carrier, since we had such a huge increase from 2019 to 2020?
Yeah, earlier this year, council and staff, we did the RFP for insurance in the summer.
Yeah.
So that provided pricing for 2021.
Perfect.
And there is an increase there.
Okay.
Yes, Karen.
So then on the other minor ones, like about the, it says subscriptions, advertising, memberships, those amounts, like what, if we've spent nothing, so I mean, we've done no memberships for council, is that something that we normally have an $1,800 expense? because memberships wouldn't be impacted by COVID. So I'm just looking at that one. I would have thought subscriptions would have been covered because of our municipal world or the subscription that we all receive.
It looks like the AMO membership typically would be due perhaps at the end of the year. It looks like it's about $1,800.
Okay.
So
That-
that
yeah.
will come into an actual probably next month for that
Yeah.
one.
Okay,
other-
and what about the training sessions? Or is this just, if we leave the $2,000 in, that means then that we may or may not use that?
Right, and you want to have those amounts there as a resource in
Yeah.
case you use them.
Yeah,
As you
I
said, your budget.
understand.
So I wouldn't want to make your budget too lean.
Yeah.
By removing them at the get-go and then not having them if you need them next year.
No, I wasn't suggesting that, yeah. Okay, did I see your hand, Ian?
I did, but I think I answered it myself. I'm just wondering why the remuneration and wages are at 63,768, but it's just probably up to date. It hasn't probably had everything accrue there for the whole year.
Yeah, we'll still be putting November and December.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't see any other further questions, so if we can move on from this page then. I think there was, I don't wanna lose anything because there is that one point about the council remuneration wages that could possibly be red flagged for now, I guess, in case somebody wants to bring it back up. Seemed like it was the only thing that we were kind of wondering about. If we could do that. Okay, so moving on from that page to the next one is the revenue on the statement of revenues and expenses administration. So we're on to that page. Okay, Andrew, anything on that first?
Yeah, probably one of the more important items that we'll see here is the administration roof replacement. So when we first look at the transfer from reserves, there's an amount there for the roof and for also the planning and engineering that will move forward that will allow the township to be ready for doing the public works, the fire and the administrative building some point in the future, and having basically coming shovel ready, plan ready, and ready to have the information to apply for any upcoming grants. That's the $50,000 of that. The other $100,000 is for the roof. As we learned last week, the township will be receiving funding for that. What I've listed here is the money coming out of reserves. And then when we receive that funding, the $100,000 for the Safe Restart grant, it will be that money that offsets that. So then down at your capital, you'll see the same amount being spent. The cost of living and the insurance increases are also in this department. And I had a question from Councillor Jennings about the administration hydro. What's happening there is in 2019, it kind of got off to the side, but that hydro invoice, it gets apportioned between public works and fire as well here. So that's happening now in 2020. And the rates have been somewhat lower. So we have a little bit of a savings showing in this department for hydro. And there was a couple questions earlier today about the definitions of the names of the accounts. One was supplies miscellaneous expense, which is things like rug cleaning and alarm system for the administrative building. The other account, which seems similar, is admin supplies, which is actually would be more aptly named administration office supplies. And there was one line, administrative contracted services, which was over budget quite a bit. And the reason for that is there was an IT study done for $8,700, and the one-time funding that was received will be being transferred to cover that. And besides that, I've made some small adjustments to some of the expenses, and at the bottom, there's a transfer to reserves, which is a larger number. That was put in there basically with the idea of using that towards municipal building. And I increased it by $57,910. That theoretically could be just reduced back to the original 102,000 transfer.
Okay, are you finished, Andrew, there for a sec?
Yes.
Done, quite a couple of questions, Karen and then Ian.
So what I was wondering is if council would allow that we actually separate to create some additional categories so that administration refers just strictly to administration. And then we create an account that's for complex so that you actually physically see the expenses that pertain just to the building or versus the administration, which is the staffing and the supplies and stuff, but anything to do with, like, so for example, the rugs and any repairs, et cetera, that Andrew just mentioned, so that Andrew creates a category that's for complex, and then we have our administration run separately. And there's a couple other departments that I'm looking to have that split as well, so that you see better figures and know exactly then what's in those categories. So that's on that one.
So that would be similar to how under Public Works, the vehicles have their own subsection.
Correct.
We could have that, a subsection for the building versus the other administrative in this department.
That's correct.
Would you be, if we have consensus to do this, would you be able to separate that for the next draft?
Most likely. And then,
Okay, I have two more
there might be a
questions, and I'm going to
transition.
go to Ian and then to Claus.
Yeah, so again, Andrew, the complex building capital, that's gonna be another 100,000 that's gonna, our expenses are gonna drop by essentially. That's correct, right?
no, it'd be,
Well, we have a $100,000 grant for the roof.
right, so,
So then it's
but
not.
we've already accounted for the revenue here, just under,
Oh,
from, not from.
okay, all right. Thank you.
Claus?
Thank you. In reference to Karen Jennings' comment about splitting the complex expenses, how far do we go with that? I mean, I realize that the maintenance of it and so forth, do we split the hydro bill for the complex versus the public works building and the fire hall? Do we split the insurance from all the other areas and so forth? I know the insurance, we do have the helmet set up, but I'm just wondering, Andrew, how far do we necessarily need to go with splitting up just the complex expenses? I know it'd be nice to know, but you could have several different categories in there.
I think it would pertain mostly to costs related to the building itself, would be segregated.
Just maintenance costs.
Yeah, we'd have to look at it and sort of assess each account to see which ones are relevant, but
Okay. Yeah, before we start splitting up, I would like to have a discussion looking at what is really relevant to the complex. Thanks.
So if we were going to have that, when would we have that discussion, Andrew? Or can we wait till you come out with the next draft so we see how you separate it?
that would probably be the best thing, and then show an example of it, and then I could,
I think we should wait for that to come back to in the next draft.
all right.
Okay, Claus, going on to Karen.
Andrew, sorry, were you going to say something,
Wait.
Klaus?
Were you
No, I'm
finished,
done,
Claus?
I'm done.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Andrew, just for clarification, because I'm not clear, the admin one-time provincial funding of the 95.9, is that not the COVID money that we're receiving? The very first revenue line.
In 2020 it is,
So that is the COVID money?
right.
Yeah.
And I believe you had asked me if it should match against the COVID expenses.
Well, the reason being is I thought at one of the other budgets, it was showing where the COVID expenses were actually under the fire department.
Right, so for year end, we may want to move this entry to miscellaneous fire revenue, and then the expenses and the revenue will match in that department. We could make that change.
Or do we
Because-
proportion? Because if you're using part of our money against our lost insurance or our lost penalty and interest and stuff, I don't know if it's going to end up creating more. I was just looking to see that you could actually find the revenue that came in and all the expenses that occurred because of COVID, just for a quick summary. If we got audited and had to provide it, I was just looking a way to make it easiest. That was all.
Okay, so what I could do is probably reach out to the auditors right away and find out if they're going to have a preferred method of presenting that and reporting it, so that we can align with that, because it would probably then fit into the FIR as well when that's done.
Okay, because I was just thinking too that I know that they did tell you that if you didn't use it all, so if they ever, so for example, those other levels ever decided they wanted to do an audit, just however it would be easiest for you.
Right, and we also will have to report how we use that money by March 31st, 2021. So we'll make sure in advance we're able to report it clearly at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Karen?
So Andrew, in reference to the many departments where you have the receiver general, the EHT, and then the group insurance coverages, do those represent the percentage increase that the various municipalities are receiving from the insurance carrier increases?
It should take those into account. And then I look also at the year-over-year trend. If there was a bit of extra room there, then I'm using that to project as well to the line total.
Okay,
Only
because I thought we received notification that our insurance carrier, our rates were going up. I haven't seen anything lately, but I thought we'd received something saying that those were going up on us.
for the employee benefits.
Yeah.
I'll have to check on that. I know our WSIB is not going up.
No, it was just the insurance carrier, the one that's with our group benefits. I thought they had sent us notification to saying it was going up again on us.
I'll double check that.
Okay.
Make sure it's factored in.
So Andrew, I have a couple of quick questions there. On the revenue side, the administration miscellaneous, can you just kind of fill us in there on, because it's 27.5. What's the main revenue on the administration miscellaneous? When it's miscellaneous, I just kind of like to be more clear on what that is.
That's the internal loan for the SCBA's for the fire department, where the fire department's paying it back to administration. So that will be going for 2021 and I believe 2022 as well.
Yeah, it's finished in 2022.
It will be done in 2022. That's right.
Okay, thank you. And just another sort of just a general question, because insurance will keep coming up. How often do we review our insurance costs, and will we be doing that this year again or whatever? Because it seems like it changes a lot. So how often do we review that? Are we locked in for a certain amount of time right now with that company?
There'd be like an amount of time you could give notice, but we did the RFP in 2020 for insurance to compare costs. So what we have now is a current cost.
Yes, but did we do that for 1 year or more?
One year.
1 year, yeah.
Okay, so I guess then that's my question. Then sometime this year, will we be looking at that again or what?
So,
I guess, yeah, that question is to you, Andrew, but
yeah, there's a lot of time and energy put into doing that.
Yeah.
The last results weren't as favorable as they were in 2018, I don't believe, so.
No.
We'd have to,
No, I know, and that's what I'm getting at. I know it was a lot of work, but I don't think in 2018 we realized it was going to jump as much as it is. Jasmine and then Karen. Jasmine.
So I think we did tender this year. Council hasn't discussed about potentially tendering again next year. It's something
Yeah.
that we could bring up in the early years of 2021 to tender for the 2022 renewal, but we did only have one bidder in our
Yeah.
last renewal. So I guess
And I'm not asking to have a discussion right now. I did want to just put it on the table that we could think about it maybe in the new year. Karen, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, insurance in general has gone up for everybody. The only thing that we might look at, and I don't know if we did when we did this tender, was changing our deductibles to try and lower our premium costs. But I mean, in general, the insurances have just skyrocketed.
So we could just kind of, I'm just asking if we can put that on the agenda for sometime next year.
we can make note of that.
yeah, I think for that kind of item, we'd need consensus from council.
So do we have consensus? Karen, I see you're shaking your head. Claus,
Yes.
Jeff?
Yep.
And Ian?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. So I don't see any further questions now, so we'll move on then. And that's the next, that's taken care of 3 pages. So the next department is going to be the fire,
Wait.
but Ian? Yes,
Yeah.
Ian?
First of all, first thing, do we have consensus to do what Karen said to break everything out? Do we get that from council?
Nope.
To separate the
Yeah.
separate. Do we have, I think, well, okay, so do we have consensus? We'll go around then. Karen, I don't think I need to ask you on that, but Claus,
No, I would not agree with that.
pardon me?
No.
Okay, because I guess Claus, you were asking for some further discussion to see how far we were going to go, so do we need the discussion first before we try to get consensus or not?
Yeah, I'll hold off till we have the discussion then.
Okay, Ian,
Yeah, I'm for it.
Jeff,
Yeah.
and so we have consensus to separate that, but I guess we still could have a discussion on how we're going to separate that, but that's going to come back in the next draft from Andrew. Okay?
And
Right,
Bree?
Ian?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
fine. Just on the next item, when it comes to fire, if we get into, if anybody starts talking about volunteer points or volunteer remuneration, I need to declare a conflict of interest, and I will shut my camera off and my microphone. Is that the correct procedure, Jasmine?
Yes, sorry, I thought I was muted for a second. Yes, that's the correct procedure. You can still listen to the proceedings. You just have to shut your camera and your mic off. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Dean. Then moving on, that's the next department. So we're now on to page 1 of, we've got 2 pages, 3 pages, sorry. And that is on the statement of revenues and expenses for fire. So Andrew, back to you.
All right, so this budget, it was reviewed and had input from the fire chief, and as well as from our first budget meeting, at this time we've included a tanker truck and an increase in volunteer points. Made other changes the fire chief has asked for throughout the expenses. And probably the key thing to make note of is the reserve for fire equipment is 13,000 short of the price of the tanker that we're budgeting. So right now that 13,000 would be coming from a tax levy directly. The other option for that would be to transfer some money from one of the other reserve accounts to cover that 13,000 difference between the 327,000 that's coming from reserves there now, and the 340,000 that we've budgeted for the fire equipment capital. When you look at this budget without that 13,000, it's about $10,000 more than the expenses for the prior year. For the deficit from the prior year budget. So in
Okay,
2020, the deficit was budgeted at 283. Without that 13,000, it'd be at 293.
Karen?
So first question is, when we buy a new tanker, where's it going to go if we haven't got our new buildings yet?
I haven't had a chance to ask the fire chief that yet.
So could the tanker wait till next year to possibly have space for it? Or is the current tanker totally, on its last legs, or whatever you want to call it?
I believe what the fire chief had said was the tanker we have now is in good working order, and he would use it as a second tanker. But because of its age, we need to have a frontline vehicle this would be the replacement. And I believe the concern was that it may take up to a year to receive that tanker and have it built. So we may not receive it even until 2022. And so the question would be to not be caught waiting too long to receive it, or to defer it till 2022 for the next budget.
Okay, so I saw two hands. I saw Jeff and Ian, but Jeff, if you don't mind, please, I'm going to go to Ian because Ian might have some information to help us on that last point. So Ian, if you don't mind, please first.
Yeah, from the best of my knowledge, I think that Andrew's correct. The tanker probably takes close to a year to get once we've ordered it. I guess my question in regards to that, Andrew, is we don't pay for the tanker in full until we get it.
Right.
So the full amount of the tanker isn't going to impact this year's budget if it's a 1 year lead time. It will be actually next year's. So therefore, if we do another $50,000 fire transfer to reserves, there'll be no additional charge to the levy.
That's right.
Perfect. Thank you.
It could be similar to what happened with the 3-ton truck for Public Works. It was on the budget for 1 year, but it wasn't available. Then became part of the next year's budget because it hadn't been purchased yet.
So therefore, we'd be in good shape.
Process was taking place.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Okay, thanks, Jeff, for waiting, Jeff. And then Karen.
A lot of what I was going to ask, because I'm wondering, like when we order the tanker, do we have to put money down for it, or do we just pay for it on delivery?
I think once you go out for tender, probably that contract would be enough, similar to the other vehicles, as opposed to a down payment. But I'd have to check.
We only do it on delivery. So even if we start the ordering process next year, do we have to have it in our budget to start the ordering process next year to know that we're planning on having it paid for the 2022 budget?
It's probably a better practice to do that, to be clear and accountable for it.
Sorry, I missed the beginning part there. I missed that. It's what?
It would just be more transparent to show the intent. I would include it just for transparency.
Okay. But if we're not going to actually planning on spending that money, I mean, it's a big chunk of money to try to, to talk about a tax increase on if we're not actually going to spend that money this year.
Yeah, or if you took the 13,000 from a reserve, there'd be no impact on the tax levy.
So almost do that on paper, because realistically, we're not going to actually get this or pay for it in 2021.
You can't guarantee that you'll receive it, but if it were to happen quicker, then you'd have the budget in place.
But if we don't go, and maybe I'm just playing games here, but I mean, it's like, if we don't go out to tender until, August, there's no way we're getting it by the end of the year. So we could leave it in there. I'm trying to figure out, like, we can leave it in there for the transparency purpose and to borrow it from that other reserve to show that we're borrowing from that other reserve, but we're not really actually going to be spending that money this year. Like realistically, we can have it still go into 2022.
Why would we be waiting till August?
Yeah, no. As soon as the budget's passed.
Yeah, why, if we pass the budget, why would we wait till August?
Because my point is that are we going to, like, I'd like to think that, and I kind of maybe what Councillor Strait was saying, like if we're really waiting until we get that other sort of transfer or not, we're not really going to be paying for this until 2022, or I'd rather get it for 2022. Like instead of deferring it the full time, because if we defer it, we may not get it until 2023. So it's just more of, putting it in there, but not necessarily, I don't want to delay the ordering process, I guess, but I don't really, necessarily want to start borrowing from the other reserve if we don't have to, or go into a deficit there too as well.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Jeff, if you have further, but I'll go to Ian and Karen. Ian?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Councillor Carroll's saying, but can we not, when we do, I'm sure they're going to ask for a down payment of some sort for it. It probably won't be the full 340,000. You won't pay for something in full until you get it. But when we ask for the tender, the delivery be in 2022. So whatever that down payment amount might look like, I don't know if it's 20% or 25% or whatever it could be. We actually use that as the piece, but I understand what Councillor Carroll's saying. We don't want to be budgeting for $340,000. We're not going to pay for the whole $340,000.
The thing is, we're not guaranteed that it'll go till, if we tender out early enough, then we're not guaranteed that it's going to happen in 2022. It might happen late 2021.
Well, can we confirm that delivery of the tanker in 2022 works?
Yeah.
And if that works for the fire chief, then write the tender so the delivery comes in 2022.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to Karen and then to Jeff.
So I'm going to be the gun shy one, because I remember not that long ago, a municipality that got stung on a fire truck that was bought and then didn't get delivered because of the company. Whether it was they went under, but there was something that happened. So if you're going to order it, I would want it delivered with the, whether it takes up to a year or not, I wouldn't delay it, but it still comes back to, where are we going to put the tanker? Whether it be in 2021 it arrives or 2022, where are we going to put it?
Okay, and so Jeff and then to Klaus.
Anyways, I don't know do we have to do a down payment? I don't know if that's even an option or not. Maybe Jasmine can answer that.
Yes, Jasmine.
Yeah, so what we can do is at the next meeting, we can have the fire chief come back and see how the tenders typically work for pumpers. So we can answer that question definitively about whether or not there's money required to be put down. In terms of the expense coming from 2021 versus 2022, if we're tendering for a large item, it is a little bit more transparent to have it clearly outlined in the budget. With the majority of the money, it's being taken from reserves. So whether it's taken from reserves in 2021 or 2022 doesn't make a major difference to the actual budgeting process itself. It's just what year it comes out of the reserve. So it's the real key is that $13,000. So I think that answers a couple questions. And in terms of the location, I think there are ongoing discussions about our facilities, and I think that it's definitely something that the fire chief is going to be bringing back to talk about as to where that would be housed. So we have the year to deal with that issue of where it's going to go.
So I'm going to go to you next, Klaus, but I think that then this specific part of the fire budget, I think we should be just red flagging until the next draft then, or till our next meeting, budget meeting.
So we're going to be bringing back information.
Yes. Okay. You don't need consensus for that, do you, Jasmine?
No, that's fine. We can just make a note of the information that we're going to bring back. Enough people asked the question. I think there's already consensus. So
Okay, and as I said, like, so this now is just red. The decision is red flag until later. Next, Claus first.
Actually, thank you, Ray. Actually, Jasmine answered my question that they'll be bringing back information. I
Okay.
presume from the fire chief. And
Okay.
then we can have a more meaningful discussion once we get all the information.
Okay, so further questions on the fire budget then?
Yes.
No more?
Oh, yes.
Yes, Karen?
Question on the 6,200 line where it says, we budgeted 6,300, but this year we've already spent 7,739, but we're going to drop it back down again to 6,350.
That's
Yes,
what it says.
Well, if we haven't got all the salaries in there and we're already
Yeah.
over and we're upping the salaries, then how does that drop? Sorry.
No, that's a good question.
yeah, just 1 second. I'll answer
That's
that.
okay. But I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into things anyway on you.
All right.
Uh-huh.
So, let's see here. Yeah, so that was one of the questions, I think it was in the email earlier today. And under our line there, we have our employee benefits. And there was a additional premium due to the benefits company that was paid in 2020. That was actually in regards to 2019. So when that account finally got reconciled and verified with the company, then in that time last summer, then that additional amount was paid to bring the account up to date. So that's what put it over at this point for 2020. And then for next year, without that in there, that budget line should be accurate.
Yeah.
So
Yes, Karen?
So then the next one has to do with our remuneration for the volunteer points.
all right.
So back in budget of 2018, the start of 2019, I had asked the treasurer at that time if there was a possibility of a comparison of the various municipalities with the volunteers, because I didn't know whether our point system was keeping us current, because I think it comes down to a very minor amount that our volunteers are actually receiving. And at that time, Augusta Township was in the process of a review because they were also at the same point saying we've really fallen behind. So I was just wondering if it's possible if council would have consensus that we have a comparison done just to ensure that our volunteers are being recognized for the service that they're providing. When you increase the number, I know that Miles has done a minor increase on the budget, but if you've increased your staffing complement as well, then I think we need to look to see whether or not we are still compensating them in the manner that they should be. I know I also asked that they also be included in our COLA, because that was something that it wasn't happening when our former treasurer was here. If that was something, since all other staff are recognized with COLA, that they also be recognized. So it's something I'm looking to get consensus from council on.
Certainly the first part that you're talking about, Karen, it never hurts to review something like this. So I guess what you're just asking, that we would review that in the coming year, you mean?
It will
Or
have to be for
before we pass the budget?
I think it's too late to try and get it for the budget, but if we definitely did it for the review in 2021, so that we have a better reflection for the 2022, but also again, that to ensure that COLA was added to them on an annual basis, the same as we are, because it's not something that's always been thought of. just the regular salary lines, not that line. And I think that it's fair to include their line with COLA.
So could we decide as a council regarding COLA at the time when we do a review?
Well, you can, but it could also be done before then. Like,
Yeah. Jasmine?
I mean, council can choose to include COLA into the firefighter compensation for the 2021 budget and still also recommend that the review be undertaken throughout 2021.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, like if we can just separate the two. Well, so first of all, I'll see if we have consensus to include COLA for the 2021 budget. So I think, Karen, you're suggesting that we do. So I'll go around and ask everybody. There's 4 of us. So I'm going to go around and I'll ask Clausier first
Yes.
and Jeff.
I remember the discussion. I thought we had already decided to do that. So I mean, for sure, I think we should be doing it. I thought we already had gone. We already did that, or we wanted to do that. I remember that, but I guess we didn't pass it. I guess when we had that discussion. That's it, eh? Okay. I thought we did.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally.
I now know to say I'd like consensus.
So well, we have consensus. We have consensus now on that, but also, do we have consensus then to review the point system in the coming year? I do from you, Karen, also Claus
Yes.
and
Yes.
Jeff.
Yeah.
So you have consensus on both
We were
those.
doing. I was going to say something we would bring up like in a regular meeting, but I mean,
Yes.
I mean, I guess we can do it now too. I guess, but
Well, I think that can come up at a regular meeting in the new year.
yeah, like we could bring that up. Like Karen, any one of us could really, but let's bring that up in the meeting up in the new year and discuss that.
Yeah.
I
So
just
we
don't
have
want it forgotten.
Well, we've got consensus now to do both those things. Okay.
So just to be clear, you're directing the fire chief to undergo a review of the compensation for the volunteers and how it compares to other municipalities.
Yes.
So I
And we
like, I'm just, because there was a couple comments about further discussion. I'm not sure that we would need any like further direction on that. I think we're probably okay, but we bring back that report probably in, the coming months or so.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
discussion will take place obviously after that report comes to us, after he does the review.
But we're not, it's not for this budget, it'd be for the 2022 budget.
That's my understanding of the consensus that we're giving you, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear.
And also, but we also have consensus to include the COLA in the 2021 budget.
Hmm.
So that's for you, Andrew, to deal with, okay?
All right.
Okay. Yes, Karen?
Additional questions, but I'm done with the volunteer points.
Okay, so then maybe Ian should come back if we're done with the points. Ian?
Yes, Reeve.
Okay, thanks. So back to you, Karen.
And I apologize if Andrew's answered these because I didn't get through his email. The conference accommodation and meals to go from 2,000 as the 2020 budget up to 3,000. Do we know that he's got some conferences that he's booking into to require $1,000 increase?
Sorry.
What's the
which-
number on that
Yeah,
one,
no.
Karen?
211, 210, 70, 40.
Right.
Yeah.
And then part of that was the offset that the fire chief had was to reduce the next line down 211, 210, 70, 96 down to 0. It was part of his managing his accounts to adjust them.
Actually,
Yes, Karen.
but this at 70, 40 is conference accommodation and meals. That's not the same as mileage general meetings. They
Right.
are different.
Yeah, he he must have had an intention to use that because he'd asked me to make that change. So I've presented it here.
Would we
We
be
can
able
clarify
to
that
get,
in the second draft though.
yeah, I was gonna say, would we
Johnson?
be able to get, would we be able to get clarification on that then?
Certainly.
Jasmine?
Yeah, I do believe that I think that the intention was to involve a couple more of the more senior fire personnel into some of the conferences as well. We can get absolute confirmation from Chief Greer, but I think the intent was to start actually having some of the captains participate in some of the conferences as well.
But
Bill?
Yes. Kim?
Something's gone wrong.
sort of lost you there.
Yes, Kim?
So we will split that
Okay.
back out again though to get mileage, general meetings, et cetera, versus conferences. You're going to check with Miles, correct?
Yeah, we'll get information from the fire chief to verify those.
Okay. Can I then also,
Yeah.
perhaps it's because we've still got a couple of months to go, but your fire hydro from 4,800 and we're only sitting at $2,000. Is that, are you expecting that much of a jump for the next couple of months?
No, it'll probably be under budget.
Okay. Operational expense at 5,000. What exactly does that mean when we're only spending 2,000 roughly or so this year?
So that is,
The 7,116?
let's see what we have here. Yeah, so that's some different things like fire extinguisher maintenance, some supplies.
But we have a fire supply line.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what I'm looking at is that I'd like to see not just, well, here's what we put in the budget last year and we're going to bring it forward all the time. I'd like to actually have staff actually go through and know specifically, like even on the SCBA bunker and helmets. I mean, we had put 10,000 for this year's budget. We spent, 3,200. I know that we had additional people that were brought in. I know that we had some replacement stuff that was needed, but if we could have more of an actual costing versus we're just going to keep throwing these numbers in, that's, I guess, what the direction I was sort of looking for in questioning. We don't just always go budget to budget, budget to budget. We actually should have backup to say. So even, for example, in any of the budgets where it says we've got conferences we want to go to, the memberships, etc., management know exactly what conferences they want to sign staff up for and things like that. They know the memberships, so they should have an idea of better budget lines versus just always following from a previous. So maybe not this year, maybe it's too much, but maybe for next year when we go to do this process, if we could look at more of an actual budget versus just copy from year to year.
Yeah, if there's consensus from council, I believe I could bring in that style of report for next year, for the next budget cycle.
Yeah, and it'll be a little easier to do it next year without COVID-19. That's the positive side,
Yes.
hopefully.
Yeah.
So consensus clause,
Yeah, sure.
Ian?
Yeah, I think that just not just only on the fire budget, but on all.
No,
of them.
all. It was all
Yeah.
budgets. Yep.
Perfect. Yes.
And Jeff?
Yeah, more accuracy, yeah.
Okay, then, Andrew, you got that?
Yeah,
So I see no further questions on the fire budget. And if not, then we can move forward on to page 1 of the police services budget. And so Andrew, do you have anything first to present there on that?
Just the key point, I guess, is that the OPP contract costs, we've received that number for 2021. The actual number is $546,047. So in the budget line, we've put 550,000. It's just slightly higher. We rounded it up. Otherwise, this budget is the same.
I can't recall what the reconciliation was for 2020.
I believe it was slightly lower, the last reconciliation we had than budget.
And I guess my question was, do we have any idea about calls for service this year compared to last year?
I don't have that with me at the moment.
Yeah, we haven't had any police service board meetings because of COVID, but I guess my question will be for you, Jasmine. Do you have any idea? Do we have any idea at all for calls for service?
No, not at this time.
Is it possible that we could ask for our next for
100%.
the next draft meeting?
So what is it that we're asking for here? Do we want to make sure we're confirming the next year's contract cost?
No, I'm just wondering about how the calls for service this year compared to last year.
So in terms of cost, or is this something that's just not related?
Well,
to
it's the calls for service is what is what it, that's the 60% of the budget, right?
So what I could do is make sure we can confirm what our 2021 contract cost is going to be.
I would hope so, because like I said, the calls for service is about 60%. That's what changes our budget, but the 40% is what's you know, it's across the board. It's we can't do anything but the 40%, but the calls for service is what affects the 60% of the OPP budget, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
Well, I
like to
can
see
get us
that.
what our contract cost will be.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this then? Okay, then moving forward, moving on. The next one is the protection, control, and bylaw. So anything you want to say about this one first, Andrew?
No, right now it's the same budget
Okay.
as the 2020.
Any questions on this from council?
No.
Okay, moving on. And the next one is the conservation. That's pretty straightforward. Any questions on this one?
Pay the bill.
Moving forward, the next is the statement of revenue and expenses for public works.
Okay. So something you'll notice with Public Works in the next budget is that the street light payments are also completed for 2021. So you won't see the internal revenue there for that for $23,170. And the Public Works debt charges, 315-210-7382. For the payments for the snowplow, those will be done in 2020, so there'll be no amount there for 2021. And the transfer to reserves is also decreased by the streetlight amount of $23,170. Beyond that, the Public Works managers let me know that the gravel calcium dust control, he's checked the number and we put in 85,000 for that dust control as a budget. And also we've included roads under capital. And at this point, we've included a backhoe and a half-ton truck for discussion.
Okay, open it up to council. Just to begin, I have a couple of, well, the first one is fairly minor. Maybe this will be to to you, Andrew, or to Stephen. The very first line under the revenue, we're up quite a bit there on under the pits and quarries grant from 10, and the actual was 35. Can you explain that, please?
So right now, let's see here. It's for 2019, the township received 37,000, and for 2020, it's now reserved the $35,476. I know that we've received the money, but I don't have the detailed paperwork in front of me, so I will track that down. And I can get back to you with that as well.
Okay, thanks. And then the other question I had was, can you explain that for under the revenue, the transfer from the obligatory funds from 90, like the 2020 budget, 95,000, and the proposed budget, 250,000.
So that amount, that would come from the gas tax. And the suggestion would be to use that for the Richardson Road culvert, which has been inspected and is in quite disrepair. So
I see.
Public Works Manager might have more detail there if you need it.
Did you want to comment on that, Stephen?
Yeah, just that the Richardson Road culvert is, as per the OSIM report, it's had to be replaced like last year. That's the kind of shape it's in. So it's definitely an immediate action item.
Yes, okay. Question, do I see your hand, Karen? I just see your fingertips. I'm not sure if your hand is up. Okay.
It wasn't,
Yes.
but it will be now. On the, where it says backhoe. So we're buying a backhoe, not an excavator? Is that right? Are we replacing the excavator with a backhoe?
I can go ahead, Reeve, if that's good.
Sorry?
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Yeah, so that's my intent would be to replace the rubber tire excavator with backhoe instead, yes.
Okay.
I think it does need to be noted that we will be bringing forward a more detailed report to talk about that at our next budget meeting.
Okay. Claus?
Yeah, Jasmine answered the question, and thank you for that, Jasmine and Steve, because we discussed this at length at the last meeting, and it was pointed out to us that we've spent a fortune on repairing the rubber tired excavator. So it's time to move that thing out and replace it with a backhoe. And I feel personally a backhoe will be far more versatile than the rubber tired excavator. But we'll wait until we get the final report from Stephen.
Yeah, just a general comment. When you look at this, at our equipment, I guess maintenance service, there's quite a cost there, and you almost start wondering if we should have an in-house mechanic.
Yeah.
Well, it might sound weird, but I'm kind of serious about that because there's a big expense there. Karen?
So further on down, you get into your equipment. I guess that our licenses we don't do until the end of the year, considering we budget 6,500, but we only spent 51. So most of our licensing must happen towards the end of the year.
That's right.
So
Go ahead, Karen.
on our equipment, where we've got a 2009 Chev 1 ton, 210 GMC half ton, 218 Dodge half ton. We now have a something else 3 ton. Is that what it is? And you're looking to get another half ton? What?
Replace the one or the 2010 GMC half ton.
To replace the 210.
And one of these will be sold, right, Stephen?
That's the 210.
That could be, yes, that would be a report that would be brought forward.
Yeah.
This would be the one that we deleted before out of budget?
Oh, yes. Yes, so the 1 ton is to be put on surplus as a surplus item on Gov Deals shortly, yes.
Jasmine?
I just, it's exactly the thing that Steve just said. So the 1-ton is slated to be disposed of, and then the 210 would be the replacement.
Right. Okay. Jeff?
Just two questions. I got two questions, I guess. How many kilometers are on that? Because the 210 is the one that you're going to propose that we're going to change next year. How many kilometers is on that? Do you know?
Odds.
It was, yeah, I think I want to say it was around 150. I'll confirm that for the next meeting, but it was very high.
150?
Like it's, sorry, 250, I think it was.
Up there.
Not 100.
Okay.
But I'll confirm that for you, Councilor Carroll.
That sounds good. And the other one is, so 315, 230, 7090, the mesh system, because we found out not too long ago that we're not using that anymore. Is this fulfilling a contract, or is this something that we no longer need to pay for?
That will be a deleted item or a deleted cost, yes.
Andrew, you got that line?
Was your question to Andrew, Jeff?
Well, no, I mean, Stevens noted that. I guess the sense of like Andrew seeing that, I guess, too, as well. The mesh system is, but we don't have a contract still for that at all. I guess like it's done for like we're done with the mesh system. Jasmine, sorry.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
so I've got Jasmine, Ian, and I think Karen again. So Jasmine.
Yeah, so we're done with the mesh system, but there's a small expense for the work order management system that we chose in place, which would be, I think it's like $1,500 a year.
We could change that to $2,000, I guess, would be basically changing the mesh system from what it's called to that new system for 2,000 instead of the mesh for 5,500. Okay.
So before I go to you in, Andrew, I just have Andrew. You look. I just want to make sure you're okay there. You looked a little puzzled.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, or is everything okay there? Clear for you?
Yeah, I must have overlooked that line. I thought it was a reduction, but I guess it's basically going down. We're going to put in 2,000 there. So I've made note of that.
Okay, thank you. Then are you finished for now, Jeff, there?
I only have another random question about the international plow truck. Like, what was the huge repair on that? Did something, I thought that was, we were told that, I remember being told earlier that one's in like tip-top shape. So I was kind of curious.
Yeah, so with the International 2016 plow, it actually has the water tank attached to it. So that's where I believe the cost got put in there. And so that's where the inflation on that price is actually because of that tank that goes alongside it.
What was wrong with the tank? Did it?
I believe it was a pump was replaced. So it's one-time expense. It's something that should be seen again for a while.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Going on to Ian.
I guess kind of on the same note as what Councilor Carroll just said there. So it's a water pump for $20,000. That's quite a water pump.
That's not all water pump. That's maintenance for that, welding on the tank, replacing the pump, which is from fire background. Its pumps aren't cheap. Anything to do with pump is expensive. So that's under there. And then as you can see, the cost, there was a lot of bearings. There was a lot of, just for the safety, the price went up on that. So as you can see, we're expecting around the 12,000 is where that cost will be for the servicing of that truck and some routine maintenance on the tank.
So the routine maintenance on that one there is going to be on the 2016 is going to be more than what the routine maintenance is going to be on the 2006. Double.
So we're anticipating to have our new plow. So I've adjusted the line item that it will be replaced with a 2020 international plow.
Okay.
Okay. No, I'm just wondering about the general maintenance. We have 12,500 in the proposed budget for the 2016.
Yes.
And then the 2006 is at $6,000. That's because you're just going to take it out of there?
Yeah, so that'll be replaced with a new truck. So that'll just be the yearly safety on that, on our new truck for December of next year.
Okay, so the new truck, that was my next question. New truck, when is it coming?
Mid-December they told us that it's supposed to be here mid-December.
Mid-December of this year.
That's correct.
Okay. The wheeled excavator, since you're getting the backhoe, are you going to surplus the wheeled excavator then?
That is something staff will bring forward, yes, as a report to surplus.
Okay, so then the $8,000 proposed in the budget for repairs, that won't be there then? If we don't have it,
There'll still be some, we'd hope there's no expenses for it, but I mean, you have routine stuff that's going to happen with it. So we're anticipating a bit. We could be a deduction of some on that.
Okay. And the tractor, what's the tractor?
That is the new lawn tractor.
Oh, okay. Okay, lawnmower. All right. Thank you.
Okay, Ian, I think I saw your hand up, Karen, earlier.
So I went further on down in the budget where you get down into the rural addressing and then maintenance signs, safety devices, etc. So on the rural addressing, we had budgeted 1,000, we've spent 4,700. I'm guessing we did a bulk order and surplus to have inventory. But on the maintenance signs and safety devices, we were well under. Do we know, or are we, based on the stock we've got, we need to keep that at 4,000 still?
That's it, yes.
Okay. And then the railway flasher agreements, I guess we know that that's going to automatically be 23,000 as an expense.
I believe so, Andrew, if you want to.
The flasher agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about. It's an invoice of about $1,000 a month.
Okay.
Oh.
The proposed is 23,000 for that.
Yeah, 1,000 a month.
2, 3. Okay, so yeah, one invoice from Via Rail is $976 a month, and one invoice from CPR is $816 a month. So yeah, so it's
yep.
We get those invoices monthly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the budget for that.
Andrew, this is very, very minor, but I'm just trying to eliminate a line if we can. Under the paved roads, we're only talking, the actual is $9, but what's paved, ditching, miscellaneous expense? Is that a line that we need?
I'm not sure why that was coded quite like that. Let's see what that is here.
I mean, it's minor. I'm just looking at eliminating that if it doesn't have to be there.
Yeah, actually, that was miscoded. That was just a small mileage amount for summer staff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Karen.
So we put 17,000 in the budget for line painting this year. Are we line painting all the roads again next year for 17,000?
That would be to redo line painting. Many municipalities do it yearly, just to freshen up everything. As you can tell with plowing and everything, it does decrease the amount of line painting there. So it's a visibility safety issue that try to do as many roads as we can yearly and make sure all of our roads are done at one point.
So Stephen, we usually ask this question to former managers. Do you know why those yellow lines supposedly are only good for 1 year? Is there not a material that you can buy, or do you know of any materials that we could invest in that through the contract that might last longer than 1 year?
Not off the top of my head, Reeve, I do not. I could talk to line painting contractors and see if there's something. It's obviously going to be a higher cost, but I can look at seeing if there is something that has longer durability. I know with our roads being there's quite a few tar and chip. It's just going to have that wear and tear off it from the plows and all those other items
Yeah.
that obviously have happened. But yes, that's something I can look into and see if there is another solution to that.
Yeah. Now I think I saw Karen, Ian, and then I'll go back to you, Karen. Ian.
Quick question, Stephen. On the paved hard top contracted service, $20,000. Do we have something in mind that we're going to be spending $20,000 on?
So there's actually a couple little spots to come out of that item from culvert work last year that just got paved not too long ago. So we're expecting to see some costs come in for that. But yes, there is some paved hardtop that work we would get done with in Adirondack. There's a couple spots that would need some work, and staff has advised me that there's some work we can do ourselves, and that's where that would be.
Just a quick question. Matheson Drive, the paved shoulders that were cracked and falling off, were they repaired this year?
Not to my knowledge. Checking in on that, on the deficiency. The list I found didn't have much information on that, so I will check with Cranes and get back to you, Councillor.
Right. Thanks.
Karen.
I'm still on the line painting. I know you made reference to safety, but I guess my question is, if it's a safety factor, then why don't all the highways get painted, line painted every year? I mean, I definitely want to ensure that people can see them, but if the paint goes off that quickly, would it not be going off all the paved roads the same?
Yeah, many municipalities and like MPO, I know they have yearly contracts that they're getting painted every year. I think it's pretty standard practice to have all roads done, especially major highways that actually are quite frequently being done.
Well, I'm on Roger Stevens and I drive 15 and I know they're not done annually. That's why I was just asking.
Well, they may have a different material that we could look into, Stephen.
That's correct.
Because it amazes me that it'll only last 1 year.
Yeah.
In here.
So we'll just leave. I don't think we don't need consensus for that. Do we?
No, he's going to check it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions then on the public works? Yes, Karen?
There might be a reason that I didn't see in the email, and I apologize again. Your snow plowing materials at 5,000, but we spent 17. Was it something in that one?
Yeah, I'm looking at that with their staff. I believe there was a bulk buy for blades, for snow plowing blades. I don't believe it's an item that will be done every year, but I'm following up with staff.
Okay.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, then we're going to move on to the next department, and that's the revenue and expenses for the street lights.
Mhm.
Reeve
So,
Dobson.
pardon me. Yes, yes, Jasmine.
I'm going to make a suggestion that we go through the streetlights with Stephen and then perhaps skip to the end to capital to talk about any public works related capital items, so that potentially Steve doesn't necessarily have to be here for the rest of the discussion in between, if that's amenable to Andrew and the rest of council. So we'll do streetlights and then capital for public works.
Okay, so I'm sure that that's fine. You know how easygoing we all are. So we're going to go to the street. We'll stay on the street lights for now then. Thanks, Jasmine. Any questions, any comments first? Andrew, do you want to say anything about this first before we open it up?
Basically, we've made an adjustment for streetlight billings, which is the hydro build for those, and the debt charge is done in 2020, so that's being removed for 2021.
Okay, Ian.
No.
Yeah, Ian and Claus, and then Karen. So Ian first.
I know a couple times throughout the year there has been discussion about the addition of a couple street lights. I know Reeve Vandermeer has brought it up, and That's been brought up by members of our public. I'm just wondering if we're gonna have that discussion about adding a couple, or we were gonna do an assessment of certain areas within the township, or where we might be with that.
Thought we were doing an assessment. Before I go to Karen and Claus, Stephen, do you have a comment on that first? There's
Yeah,
been no
I believe-
assessment done yet, have there?
No, I believe council did ask me to come back with a report on street lighting, so I will be completing that for you.
So will we, can we hold off making a decision on this till that report comes back then? Okay, I think we would do that, but I'll go to Karen and Claus first. So Karen,
My question was just with reference to the streetlight billing. We budgeted 3. Our actual's higher and we're not done yet, so we're only putting 5 in. So what's the discrepancy? I missed that, Andrew. Sorry.
I think it's going to finish the year closer to 5. And then there'll be a little extra room there for next year, just in case the rates
So
change.
what was last year's costing on streetlights?
So last year, that was one of the things you had pointed out in our budget discussion with our year end for 2019. And we looked into it, and there had been a bit of a miscoding of the streetlight hydro in 2019 as there was a gap between treasurers. So it was going against administration. So that was one of the reasons we changed administration as well as streetlight hydro to try to get them balanced out where they belong for 2020 and now for 2021.
Claus?
Thank you, Reeve. In regards to what Councillor Straight said, I'd like to red flag the street lighting expenditure for now, because we did have requests to have some additional streetlights put in. There were 2. And can we forward those locations to you, Stephen?
Yep. If you don't mind, that'd be great.
So
Okay,
we
thank
don't
you.
need to red flag anything because we already have that direction to bring forward that report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll wait for that report. Okay, then moving on. So we're going to then, with your suggestion, Jasmine, we're going to move on to the back further on, and that's going to be on the public works, right?
Capital.
Which pay, yeah. Can you just tell me how does it head up?
So it's the capital portion, the 2021 capital budget.
Capital budget, yeah.
Just get to that, please. Okay. So does everybody have that then?
Yep.
Now you're talking about the capital projects?
Yeah, particularly as they relate to public works.
Yeah, okay. So the first one, I think that's on Schedule B. I guess that's Public Works. So I'll open it up to Andrew and Stephen if you want to speak to this first.
So this is like a summary from the other public works budget pages. This is all of the capital items and gives a total at the bottom. And basically, these are the items that we talked about in our first budget meeting, and now they are on here. And there's a breakdown of the areas where the funding would come from. So the first one on the list is the half-ton truck that we sort of talked about already.
Right.
Then the backhoe.
And yeah. Karen, did you have a question on the half-ton
No.
truck?
Nope.
Okay,
Oh,
So-
no, sorry.
so that half-ton truck that we've talked about, that's coming out of reserves. The next one, the backhoe, was out of reserves. So back to you, Andrew, please.
Okay, then we move into the roads. The first one is McLaughlin.
Now, and that's one that's cost shared, right?
Yeah, I can cover that, Andrew, if you'd like.
Okay, Stephen?
So Yeah, with McLaughlin Road, it's obviously anyone that's traveled it can realize how terrible a shape it's in. We spend quite a bit of money on cold patch for that road. It is a cost shared road with Beckwith. They have agreed to go forward to their council to ask to have McLaughlin Road redone. So as per the roads need study, it would be, there's about half of it that needs full reconstruct. There's 2 spots that are very terrible shape. So they'd be full reconstruct, and then there's a couple spots that would just be a rehab. And there's obviously some culvert works in there, and it's anticipated to come in around 400,000.
So are you talking about, McLaughlin on the east side of 15, right?
That's correct. 900 meters of McLaughlin.
It's completely east on the east side of 15 highway. And that's a $400,000. This $202,000. That's our expenses. That's half, right? So it's a $400,000 job.
That's correct. With having the full reconstruct, obviously the price goal is astronomically more expensive. So we're looking that this road is gone beyond its lifespan with very little maintenance done to it. So it does, half of it does need full reconstruct, which has much higher costs to complete.
Yeah, and it really has needed the full reconstruction for years and years. We've kind of just, we really haven't addressed the real issue. But that part of it is because we weren't able to get consensus from our neighbor, but we do have it now, so it can move forward. So I have a question from Claus.
Thank you, Ray. Andrew or Stephen, sorry. The cost of 400,000, is that a tendered cost that you got or an estimate?
That is an estimate from the roads need study and just putting a ballpark price together.
Okay. Second question, if I may. Who will oversee this particular project? Since it's a shared one, will Beckwith be in charge of it, or will you be overseeing it?
I believe it would be a shared, probably, by the looks of things, it would be more so myself in charge. Beckwith doesn't seem to have, they've been tough to get a hold of, so I think it'd be more likely myself.
Good. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Karen?
So on McLaughlin, we did get notification this year of our share costing for gravel of McLaughlin West, but we have not paid that yet. So is that something that we look at for next year's budget? I know it's not true capital, but how have we addressed that gravel cost?
The gravel cost on the west side?
Yeah, I don't know if Steve would know about that. Andrew, I don't know. I guess the quick answer is I don't know. We'll have to get back to you on that.
That's good. Just so it's not forgotten that it's either inoperational or it's somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, then moving on to the next line there on the culvert, Richardson. Jeff?
I guess it's a quick question from McLaughlin again. Just is that tar and chip or is that full pavement?
That price would be full pavement to continue kind of Rosedale North Road north to Highway 15 Holland.
Does the traffic count justify pavement instead of tar and chip? Because tar and chip would be cheaper. I don't know how much cheaper. And
so it actually calls either or. That's where it lies in there. It's kind of vague. It can be kind of up to the discretion of us. So I did do up some numbers on that, and surprisingly, the amount that we are doing full reconstruct, we're better off with asphalt over the long term. Over the 15 years, actually, we'd be spending more money on surface treatment due to the continuous repairs we have to do to it. But that is a report that I can bring forward when we go forward with that and have the difference in price, and kind of it actually shows with the graph how the costs work.
yeah, I'd be curious of that. Curious of the if we have traffic information on it too as well. I don't know if we have that yet or not yet, but yeah. Okay, thanks, Steve.
There used to be a lot more difference between the chip and tar and the the surface treating, there's different ways to surface treat, but there's certainly ways to surface treat now that's pretty close to the cost of chip and tar, which is a bit surprising, but it used to be a big difference. So then moving back on to the next line there on the public works, the culvert on Richardson. Stephen, do you want to take this on?
Yeah, so this is again, it's the part of the OSIM report was that it was in need of immediate repair. So this would be replacing what is currently 3 steel culverts with a proposed box culvert. It's quite a large job, and the cost was provided by Greer Galloway in their OSIM report.
Okay, any questions on this? Jeff?
I don't remember, I don't, just so just going back, but when did the Roadsney study say that that was up for replacement?
I believe it was 0 years, like it was.
It was 0. Right? Okay, that was the most
Yeah.
pressing one. All right, thanks.
So what, Andrew, the question on that line for the culvert Richardson, you've got like the two figures, 250,000 and underneath 452,000.
Both the McLaughlin and
Which is a total of the 2 items of.
Oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I just, yeah. Okay, so then I guess moving on, the next one there is on the asphalt or high class, the RNS schedule.
Yeah, so this is from the 10-year plan that updated to 2021. It has the streets from the Roadsney study, which should be completed. I brought forward Lila Street, since it was not completed in 2020. And their next 2 would be Second Street and First Street in Adirano. So their price is for a partial reconstruct on these streets. I went around with our Public Works lead hand and looked at all these roads, and I actually reached out to a contractor that supplied me with some pricing for surface treatment. It's something that's used by the county and various municipalities, and sent out some roads to them, and they came back with actually better pricing than, I just got this today actually, so I wasn't able to update numbers. But if we were to go that route of a surface treatment, we could actually complete all of Adirano. There's 12 roads that we could complete. There was some on Woods and then Bauer, so it ends up being 12 streets for roughly 160,000 is what they gave us for a ballpark price. And they said as if they get the county tender, the price could actually get even better than that. So it allows us to complete all of Adirano streets at once and incorporate much more streets, which will the service treatment, it prolongs life for 5 to 7 years, creates a new wear surface, and it's a very efficient operation to do to bump up our roads conditions.
When we did the chip and tar the last time in Adirondack, all of Adirondack was done at the same time. And I believe at the time there was some sort of discussion whether we would do microsurfacing or whether we would do microchip or chip and tar, I should say. And part of the problem was the size of trucks that were needed, and there was a problem with Adirondack streets and the turning and so on. Do you know about that, Stephen?
Yeah, so if there's 2 different operations for this. So the microservicing is actually a smaller unit, which the gentleman I spoke to said there's no problem there. It's much easier to use microservicing in Adirano, whereas a surface treatment, like a slurry, it's actually, like you're saying, it's kind of a train operation, much more like paving, where you can't actually, you can't complete it, but it's just a much higher operational cost. So this microservicing is a much smaller unit, which they said they would have no problem completing Adirano.
Okay, and to be clear now, you're proposing under this, you're proposing that we do all of Adirondack, and what new area are you proposing?
So there's O'Malley and Woods. In the Woods subdivision, there's 2 or 3 roads. Just one sec, I'll pull that up.
Street.
There's O'Malley, Bauer Boulevard. It's at the point right now where if we don't invest a little bit of money on that, we're going to lose it, and it will be much like McLaughlin where it's a full rebuild. So this would prolong the condition for 5 to 7 years of that one. And then there is in the Wood subdivision, I believe it's O'Malley and Grange, I believe was other street there, and then the crossing street.
Mhm.
But those were,
Okay.
so yeah, we're essentially getting 12 streets with the micro servicing as opposed to doing the 3 that were budgeted.
Okay, any questions on this line then? Okay, the next one then would be the, I guess, the administration building, the roof.
I think maybe we've already discussed that.
Okay,
Aren't we on
okay.
just Public Works though?
Oh, yes, yeah. So, so we're just, while we're going through this, then we have, like, there's the administration building, the street light, the airport, the airport capital. Is there anything else in on the public works we have to deal with? I guess if there's no other public works items, then, Stephen, I guess we don't need your help anymore right now. Unless you want to, oh, I do see a question from Jeff.
I just a comment. I guess I'm curious about the deviations from the roads needs study, which I'm fine with because the roads needs study is a working document. I'm just curious of. I mean, I'm kind of like I'm always looking at it, and I'm always like trying to see how we're going with it, and it was an important document when we were working on it. I'm curious of how the changes that you're proposing to do, which I'm all for making changes for it if it's going to be the right thing. How it's going to affect sort of the long, I guess, life of the roads, and also like how that affects the roads study and how we're going to make those adjustments. So I'm curious, and I guess that's, this is budget time, so it's a little different. But as you're going forward with those proposals of how we're going to do that. I just want to make sure I get a really good understanding of how that affects that roads study and how the changes you're making are going to, how it filters down into the other areas, just to make sure that we don't lose track of sort of the idea behind the roads study. Because I have lots of confidence in the way that it's the way you're going with it. I just want to make sure we don't come back in a few years going, well, we had deviations from the roads study. And that's where we're behind something, or if the consultants want to come back and say, well, you didn't follow the roads needs study on this, and that's why you have a problem here. But I'm not saying the consultants are right or anything like that, but just more of, I just want to make sure that we have that really clear as we're doing it.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely following. I pulled from next year. I was trying to do all of Adirondack because if they want Adirondack done next year as well, there's a few streets in there, so that would encompass all of it as per the roads need. So if we were to take all of Adirondack at once, it's going to give us a much better price than trying to split up streets here and there, especially for the contractors wanting to come in on one mold grade. It just makes more sense to complete it all at once. And then the other roads I pulled off of the priority road list, which are ones that need immediate attention. So that's where those other roads have came from.
That's, and Reeve, just one more thing. I mean, that's perfect. I mean, that's the whole thing, is like the roads study is there and manipulating it to make sure that we're spending the right amount of money. I mean, for you to look into that, I commend you for that, because that's exactly what we were hoping for in a roads manager. So thank you for that. This is exactly the direction we want to go. So.
Okay, Ian.
I just kind of want to say what Councillor Carroll just kind of reiterated or said at the very end there. Stephen, keep up the good work. We're going in the right path. I'm assuming that you'll adjust the road needs study accordingly if you bump a road up or push it back, and keep it up to date. As you do make those changes, if you can resend that out to council, that'd be great, so that we can all kind of keep up and stay on the same page as what it is that you're on. But again, same thing. Keep up the great work. It's nice to see that you're thinking ahead and looking to save the township some money.
Okay, then, thank you for that, everybody. And as I said, Stephen, then I think we are done with you for now. And you get off easy, and we'll keep working.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
So thank you. And the question to everybody now, it's about 8 o'clock. We've been 2 hours. Do you want to keep going? Is everybody fine to keep going? Or do we need a little break?
Yes.
Somebody
I need a
needs a
break.
break.
I need,
Yeah.
Somebody
yeah.
needs a break.
Somebody
Well,
needs a break.
I think that Jasmine can take a break whenever she wants.
Technically, you
'Cause we
can't
don't-
meet without me here, so.
Yeah, but we don't see you on the screen all the time, so we're not sure where you are. So I think because we could still go on for a while, so I think it would be
Yeah, don't say that.
good to maybe take a 2 or 3 minute break. Is that okay, everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, 2 or 3 minutes, please. Thanks.
Very good.
please, quick. Okay. Lost the meeting. Zoom. Muted. Hi, Jasmine. Can you hear me, Jasmine?
Yep.
Okay. So we're back. We have everybody. Get my phone off here. Okay, we're going to reconvene here. And I'd like to go back to where we left off before. And that means the next one is the statement of revenue and expenses for the sewer water.
I think we're at airport before the
Yeah.
water sewer.
Oh, did I lose that one? Oh, I see. So that's on the same page. Okay, so we're okay. Okay, airport then? Sorry, no. Well, on this one page that I was on, the next one was the administration capital. Are we still talking about that or are we finished with that?
We're gonna go back to the admin capital at the end.
Yeah, at the administration building roof, you mean?
Yeah, that's gonna be at the end.
At the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we'll go to airport capital?
No, well, the airport in general, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Anything then on that?
So for airport, I made a couple changes based on so that I've reduced each of the two lines based on what we've been seeing over the last few years.
Okay, anything on that then? Okay, seeing no questions, in the next one that I have here under, if I'm still on the same page, the street light, no, recreation capital.
No, be water stewarder.
Yeah, okay, so that's the one, okay. Okay, the water and sewer is next then.
Okay, so for water and sewer, when I looked at this last week, I hadn't heard from Smiths Falls yet. As of since last Friday, I did get a message from the Smiths Falls treasurer, and when they do their first draft water and sewer budget, they're looking at a draft with a 1.1% rate increase. So they've let us know that, and I have not yet incorporated that into this budget. And what I have changed on this budget is to transfer from reserves because there's only 9,000 available there to be transferred in the revenue. And because the debt repayment on the meters is done in 2020, that line now is at zero. And I've put the difference of that to be transferred to water and sewer capital reserves at the end of the budget there. So we'll have information, and this will take a little more shape on the second draft than it has at the moment.
Excuse me, any questions? Karen?
So can you go through that one again? So the transfer from reserves, which is for your revenue, is short 1,000,
Right, from the operating reserve.
right? And then it says the transfer to reserves have gone up, but you said it was from which line? Did you add into it? Sorry. Oh, the debt charge
From-
line?
From the debt charge line. Yeah. And that brings it into a balanced budget or deficit. But there'll be more details coming in the second draft once, especially if Smiths Falls confirms their rates from their
Yeah.
first draft.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, then seeing none, we'll go on to the next one, and that is the waste management.
So for waste management, under the lines for the recycling collection contract, the recycling processing contract, the waste collection contract, and the waste disposal contract, what I've done is I've looked at the most current invoicing in those accounts and then estimated what the cost should be for 2021. And that's the amounts I've used for a proposed budget amount for the expenditures of those four.
Okay. Andrew, on this one budget, I have a question. Number on under the expenditures, the waste management insurance. Like, can you explain that insurance? Because when we contract out, they pay their own insurance, right? So what is this for? $13,000 while going up to $14,000. Can you explain that, please?
So that is a portion of the township's overall insurance policy. And
I guess I'm just wondering, why are we paying any insurance with, like, I thought that the contractor would have looked after their own insurance. Why are we paying some?
I believe they do have certain levels of liability based on the contract that they've signed. But the township, I guess, would still have some liability that could occur. I'm just going to pull up that on my other screen here. And the township's been budgeting a portion of their insurance policy for waste management since 2015. So I've continued that for consistency so far to also show a portion of it there.
Is that what we should be doing? Like, I just don't understand why why do we have to incur the liability when we're paying the contractor to do it?
So maybe what I'll do is review the request for proposal and look at what it spoke to for the waste portion and see if it's makes the most sense that it's in this line and not another line and it's properly broken out. And if there's anything there that needs adjustment, I can do that for the second draft.
Okay, Karen?
Just on the insurance, I don't know with the township's coverage, but what I have witnessed in the past, the insurance provider actually did a breakdown in their documents that said, here's the insurance fee for administration, here's the insurance fee for fire, here's the insurance fee on public works, etc. That it might even show you whether or not that line is in there. And if so, maybe even why it's there.
Yeah, there is some breakdown there, so I'll take a look at it and review it and see if it's optimized here.
Okay, thanks. Karen?
So on a different one, on the recycling collection and the recycling processing. So I know we've got them split out. So we originally had 180 in our budget. We've now gone to the dual stream and recycling. So we're showing like a $3,000 savings. The dual stream next year then will show us more of our savings that we're looking to see.
I'm not sure. When I look at the contract invoices for November, October, and September, like through the most current, and the tonnage, that's the projection. I'm using that throughout next year. So I'll compare it to that in case there's anything else there that I can bring for information to the second draft.
Okay.
Okay. Ian?
Andrew, the months you said that you looked at the tonnage were what months again?
Just the most recent. I grabbed the payables file, looked at the billings in the fall to see that they're the most up to date and what the flat fee is, and then the tonnage amount as well.
Do you think that because we weren't using any garbage tags, we increased the number of garbage bags that were going out to the road, that would have increased the tonnage and therefore could skew numbers, or no?
I don't think so.
I was
Okay.
on recycling, sorry, not on the waste. I'm looking at recycling.
Oh yeah, for the 180, 123.03. Yeah, there's
Jasmine?
Yeah, I just do want to state, I think pretty much all garbage, this is referring specifically to garbage, but basically most municipalities are reporting an increase on residential tonnage pretty much across Ontario, simply because of the more work from home,
yeah, I would have thought so.
more waste. Yeah.
Okay, any further questions on this? Seeing none, we're moving on then to social services.
I've made a small adjustment there to the miscellaneous donation line, with the thought that maybe it won't be utilized to the level of 2020. So I've reduced it. Unless council has consensus to change it back, I could do that as well.
No.
So what are you asking then, Andrew, again, please? Sorry.
Miscellaneous donations, this year was budgeted.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
500, and now I've got it at 8,000 proposed.
Okay. Anything on this then? Any questions? I was going to bring up a question on the first line there on the cemeteries, Andrew, please. I believe that we donate to 7 cemeteries, and but I haven't had a chance to bring this to council yet. But it has been brought to my attention that there is another cemetery that is in Montague that is not one of the 7. And although someone has cut some of the grass at this cemetery, a lot of the stones have fallen down and are in disrepair. Someone is very interested in helping us to at least look at that cemetery, and I'm suggesting that there is a possibility that it could be added as an 8th cemetery. The cemetery that I'm talking about is out on Ferguson Tetlock, and that might be called the McPheen Cemetery. This was just brought to my attention recently, and I'd like to be able to bring this to a future council meeting to discuss this, but I'm just bringing it to council's attention that it might be a possible increase in another in this budget slightly. Jeff, I see your hand, please. And then
I agree. I agree with you, Reeve. I mean, I drove by, I looked at it. I mean, and yeah, somebody is cutting the grass, obviously, but I mean, it'd be nice if we have to help sort of support that one. But I think our budget still allows us to do that. If we had to put another few $100 towards that one, our budget has that there. If there's a few more cemeteries that pop up, right? So, but I agree with you. It'd be nice if that one there, we could help that one out too as well.
And I was going to I will suggest then in the next few weeks that we possibly have a presentation by the person who wants to help us, and we could have a discussion. Ian, you were next.
No, that sounds great, Reeve Dobson. I was kind of going on the same thing that Mr. Carroll said. I mean, there's lots of money left in the budget to accommodate, help and look after that one as well.
Okay, and Claus?
Thank you. No, I agree with your suggestion, Reeve, but back at the last term of council, I brought up the McCrae Cemetery on Richardson Road, which is known by the research that's done by a friend of mine, the oldest cemetery in Montague Township by one of the oldest kind of original residents in Montague Township. It has a bit of a problem that's on private property and accessibility is difficult. But I don't know if we can ever do something with that. The stones are there. The location of the cemetery is well known and that, but we do have to cross private property to get to it. So somehow.
Yeah, and I think, and I remember at the time when we had the discussion and that was presenting a problem. I don't think the same problem exists with the McVean. I would assume that cemetery that I'm talking about is very close to where the train used to stop on that line. I would think it's only it would have been probably the one that was associated with that small little settlement area. Jasmine, I'll go to you, please.
Yeah, so the way that the legislation works is that if the cemetery is on private property, it's that private property owner's responsibility to maintain that cemetery. I think our policies have supported, us providing some funding to those individuals, but it's their responsibility to maintain it. So any partnership and any kind of work that we would support the cemetery, which I think is definitely a good cause, would have to be with the owners of the land and the owners of that cemetery.
Okay.
So I think there's probably room for this discussion to come back again in the new year. I just wanted to mention this one because there could be a possible small increase in this budget, but as it's been pointed out, we have available funds for that. So anything else then? If not, we'll move on. Okay, so we're going to move on then to recreation. The next is recreation.
Yeah.
Okay, so for recreation, this is where we've included the septic replacement and an amount for fencing for the playground. It would be transferred from reserves as how it's proposed in this first draft. And like we had brought in the first meeting a month ago, we've added a little more for miscellaneous events. Looking forward to 2021. And we've taken an amount out of health and safety because it would be covered under repairs and maintenance.
Okay. Questions, comments? Okay, seeing none then, we're moving on. The next then is the library.
I'd reached out to the library, local libraries, librarians, asked them about their budget for 2021, and they had let me know that they expected a small increase in their request for 2021. So I've included that in here.
Okay, but I have a question. This could be for either Jasmine or Andrew. It's just more of an interest, and that is, I'm just wondering, have we seen any figures as to the usage from Marrickville compared to Smith Falls? Have we ever seen the usage numbers? Okay, I guess Jasmine and then to Karen.
So that would be a good question. I know we typically annually have the library representatives come and present to council on an annual basis. We didn't do that this year, but we could certainly reach out to see if they'd be interested in a virtual presentation to ask that question.
The only reason I'm at, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe that they've presented usage and the number of users that they've had before in those presentations. That's typically where that information has come from.
Yeah, and I just can't remember what it was, because the reason I'm asking is because, as you can see on the budget, we give twice as much to Smith Falls as we do to Marrickville. So it would be nice to think that we have twice as much usage by Montague residents at Smith Falls compared to compared to Marrickville. I don't expect it to be completely equal. I mean, per capita, but it would be nice just to see the two. If we're, we may want to decrease one and increase the other. I don't know. So that's good if we can see that then. Okay, anything else on this? Then moving on. Planning building.
So for planning and building, what we've noticed is development charges are higher than our 2020 budget. So I have increased it, although conservatively, from 35,000 to 40,000 in revenue for 2021 proposed. And I'm showing a transfer from reserves, from development charges reserve, to go towards a development charges study that's going to happen in 2021. But because of the amount that's in there, it doesn't totally cover the budgeted cost of that study, which is going to be 15,000. So right now, the difference of $6,700 would be coming from a tax levy, unless we decide to use another reserve for that. And at the bottom, the development charges transferred to reserves have been increased to match the development charges expected revenue at the top of 40,000.
Karen?
I'm still looking to have this split between building and planning because of the requirement under the building where what's brought in under those building permits, et cetera, go into that specific reserve, because building funds itself, it doesn't bring in planning. Planning is paid for separately.
Yeah.
I spoke to the auditor, our interim audit on last Monday for 2020, and they were okay with this being together as long as the surplus goes to an operating reserve.
But it's supposed to go to building, right? It's supposed to be funding the building department specifically, not planning. I'll get the I don't know whether it's the Building Code Act, but there is something specific that building is to remain separate, surpluses from that, et cetera, all go into that reserve, not just into a, it doesn't fund planning. So I'll have to check on that one.
Right. We can look at more detail for that for our year.
Because I don't, like, our reserves don't specify specifically building. And if you've got the expenses that go with planning in with building, you're not getting your true picture as to what should be in building, right?
Yeah, and I don't.
You're lumping your building and
Montague's
planning
done this
conferences and everything else.
Right, and I don't believe Montague's done this yet in the past.
No, but
This
it's
is a new thing.
I'm new on council,
Or to be
yes,
done.
and it has
Yeah.
come to my attention of this, so that's why I'm bringing it forward.
Mhm.
But it should be showing separately, like your building department revenue and expenses and their reserves should all be showing separately from whatever our planning are. So that's where moving forward, I was asking for it versus I was not looking for it for this year, but I did want to see that split so that we have a true actual as to what our building is bringing in. So, because
So
we
you
don't
can-
see it. You
so
don't
you
see
can
it
bring
when it's
this-
all mixed.
So you can bring this back to us then in the future, Andrew?
Yeah, I would have to look at, I guess, creating a new department and separating them somehow to see where that would, how that would look.
Well, if you could maybe, if you could look at that for us and then bring it back for a discussion, whether we do or not, it would be nice if you can bring back the information and then we can discuss it.
Certainly.
Okay?
Yep.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Anything else on the planning and building? If not, then moving on to the next one, and that's the drainage.
And in drainage, I've shown a decrease in the revenue to more reflect what we're estimating will come in 2021. And the expenses I've left with a decrease in advertising as well. But
Okay,
still money there in case it's needed.
okay. Ian?
during my first summer council, we kind of embarked on the cleanliness and cleaning up and getting all the municipal drains cleaned up. Is there one in the budget for this year? Do you know?
Yeah, there has been, we've been looking at maintenance out on the Ford drain.
Thank you.
I guess if Stephen was still here, I would ask the question to him. But I guess, Andrew, I'll ask it to you. I'm just wondering if, like, I know that there's been some drainage done along Rideau Avenue, and we're still waiting to see if there's further work needed. And I'm just I guess my question is there going to be more expense in drainage regarding that? So I see Jasmine's hand up first.
So no, because it's not a municipal drain.
But when we're talking about drainage here, we're only talking about municipal drains.
Yeah. So there's budget lines in the Public Works Department that would cover contracted work for the work on Rideau.
Yeah, I guess where I was wondering, and I'm asking the question because I'm not sure. Is there a municipal drain on the south side of Matheson between there and Lawrence Street? Is there anything in there?
There's an award drain, but it's not a municipal drain.
An award drain, okay. Okay. So that's a separate issue. Okay, then. Anything else in on this? Ian?
Just a quick question then, Jasmine. The ward drains, are they the town's responsibility, or how does that work?
So the award drains have a very specific kind of outline of who's responsible for maintaining each section. So in this case, what we'd call it's called the Elgin Creek drain. So the responsibility for maintenance is split between the town of Smith Falls, East Vale, and the township. So the actual agreement itself outlines which sections you're responsible for maintaining.
Okay. Thank you.
So to follow up on Ian's question then, Jasmine, like, is there, if we might partially be responsible for a ward drain, then should there not be some money someplace put into the budget for that?
So there's funding in the Public Works budget. There's like paved hardtop contracted services and unpaid or unpaved. I think it says just paved hardtop contracted services and a couple other items that can accommodate. They're relatively low levels of cost for that type of thing. So yes, yeah, in the Public Works Department budget.
Yeah, the only reason that I'm asking is because, you know, for a few years now, we started talking about drainage all the way from north of Roger Stevens all the way through to Lawrence Street. And we've been doing fairly well addressing some of the problem, but I don't feel that the results are showing that it's all working yet. And I think that some of the problem is going to be set on the south side of Matheson between there and Lawrence Street. And so anyways, that's why I was bringing it up. I didn't know, I thought maybe we would have some expense there. So Jasmine and then to Ian.
So one of the major issues with the Elgin Creek drain is the outlet. There's only so far that the water can go. There's no outlet for it to actually go. So because it's been the drain was established in 1934, so it's not ideal. So we did apply to the ICIP Green Stream funding last year to actually establish that as a municipal drain. We were unsuccessful in that funding application, but we've been attempting to address those issues.
Yes, and I'm glad because I think we have to continue that in that direction. Ian?
Yeah, I agree with you, Reeve, is that, we've done such a great job all the way from, over by Dean Street, bringing the water down. We've looked at everything. The Townsville Falls did a great job on Rideau Avenue, cleaning up the ditches and everything. And then we go by right now, they're full of water. So, and then it goes down by Matheson, which we just paid a lot of money to have fixed. And now the water's sitting in the ditches next to it, which we all know is not great. It causes heaving on the road and everything else, and saturation in the base layers. So I think that, getting this here cleaned out, or coming up with a solution to clean it out, it should be maybe a little bit higher on the priority list.
Well, I know we're in the works to get something done as far as clear out in this year. So.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I know part of the problem, which is being addressed, is a beaver problem, which is being addressed right now. So it's kind of all inclusive of the work that's going on. Okay, so nothing else then on the drainage. Okay, we're moving on then. Now, so Andrew, I'm going to go back to you because I think we've gone through all of the departments, I believe. What's next?
So the summary basically covers what we've already talked about. Then we could move, if we wanted, we could move back into the capital budget. But we may have already discussed that as well, one department at a time. Then there was a sheet that is a draft for the reserve funds, which shows ultimately that what's proposed right now would decrease the reserves from about 5.2 million down to about 4.6 million for the end of 2021 as it is. Before any more amounts are used from reserves. Those are items related to what we've looked at department by department already. Then there's the 2021 salary range showing a COLA adjustment of 0.7%. That is a summary sheet as well. If there's any questions about that, but we may have already discussed that.
So if I could just mention something to council that I've been thinking about, and I think I mentioned it in our first discussion, and it's got to do with capital. It's got to do with new projects, and I'm not exactly sure how to explain this, but I did have an attempt at explaining it with Andrew this afternoon. So Andrew, if I'm going to ask if you can help me to make it a little bit more clear, but here's my thought. As most of you know, we've got many roads in Montague that are still fairly inferior, that I know that residents would love us to do something about. But I look at Montague Township in 4 sections, the same as the polling sections when there's an election. There's 4 polling stations. So I kind of look at it as 4 different quarters. And if we were able to get back to say 0, then I would still be proposing that we put further money back into the budget, but it would be earmarked for, I guess, I'm not sure what to call them, but very special capital projects, thinking that if we started a reserve for that, we could do one of those special projects per section of Montague each year. In other words, I'll just throw out an example that I'm getting at would be, you've heard me speak before, and previous councils have talked about, say, in the quarter out where you live, Jeff, in your quarter, there is that Linton Hill issue that we've never been able to deal with. But that would be, to me, like a special capital project. or it could be taking out a curve to make a road safer, or it could be another new section of gravel road, that could be surfaced. And we've heard, I think all five of us continue to get requests from people from I'm going to say from Code to Nolan's to Pinery to whatever, people wishing an upgrade. So I'm just wondering if there's any appetite to be able to do that. Now, Andrew, you legitimately pointed out to me that we do have a reserve for, I think it's called for special capital projects. But that's kind of where I'm going, and I just wanted to throw that out so that everybody would know. So Andrew, can you speak to that or explain it better than me to council?
Yeah, I think what you were asking me, it was about not waiting too far through the budget process to look at something that would be an improvement or an increased level of service or an upgrade. I think you were specifically saying it would be roads related.
Guaranteed. That's what I'm
was,
thinking. I'm thinking straight roads.
Which really, I think what you're asking is an additional building of reserves for an increase in the level of service, whether council has a will for that at this stage in the budget discussion. There is a reserve that's called Public Works Special Projects that has a balance of 53,500. And to be honest, I haven't looked back to see if that was earmarked for anything exactly specific, or whether it would be a reserve that, if council had the will, would want to piggyback on. I believe you're suggesting a small tax rate increase would be used to build that reserve, is what your question was to council.
That's what I was. That's the direction that I'm going in. But I'm only asking for that, or requesting for that, or proposing that if it was earmarked for those extra special projects, and I would hope that we would have one of those in each of the 4 areas. So basically, what this would be over a 4-year period. Yes, Jasmine.
So I think that in terms of the procedure for council moving forward, if council wanted to look into this, I would suggest that you send it back to staff with some recommendations. I think there might be some issues with essentially defining ward boundaries, or like boundaries onto where things would take place per year, especially if we're talking safety related upgrades. We might want to actually just establish clear outlines of what like maybe thresholds of what a project may reach, and then fund them that way rather than location based. But I think it's all up to council about whether or not you'd want to see the establishment of the type of, like Andrew said, a reserve for special projects.
And it's just that, I guess my thought is that, we've done an excellent job of upgrading our roads. I've seen improvements over year after year after year. And yet, I guess I always think of the people who live on our gravel roads. And I wish that, and so at the end of I know that we've done an awful lot by increasing our gravel maintenance on those roads. So I know that, but at the end of that it doesn't look like much is done, even though it is a lot by bringing more and more gravel. But I guess I was just trying to think of the overall upgrading of those roads. And we all hear it when we're in the middle of elections. You hear it. And then 4 years later, you go back to the same roads, the same people, and it's the same road. Yes, it's had a little bit more gravel, but it's not upgraded. And I guess I know that this needs discussion. I know it needs a criteria put in place or terms of reference, whatever. But I think of, I use the Linton Hill as just as an example of what I'm talking about. I did see your hand, Jeff.
Yeah, Reeve, I mean, I agree with you because I mean, like, I think that's the biggest thing. I think Stephen gave us a great example of how he has used the roads need study that we've done to find ways to make improvements, you know, without spending the money that per se is in the roads need study, which is great. So if he's able to do that going forward, the other side of it too as well, and 100%, like with McGuire Road, like that's what you're talking about, that hill and everything else. Like that's that we've had that discussion in the past too, as well as making sure that our roads needs manager is in the process of making sure that he's getting the land required or everything else so that we can move forward with those things. Because until we have that, we're kind of stymied per se. And the other part of the roads need study is I think we talked about that. We wanted to make sure that we put in those roads that were that we want to get done that we don't have the money for. So to key on that point, you know, how are we going to find the money for that? Hopefully it's in efficiencies, but also you know, through grants too as well. But I think that's a big one for Stephen to go back to see how he can find those ways and also give us an idea of what that might be costing. I don't know how we're going to put away more money for those things, but I like the idea of the earmarking of that money. But I think following that roads need study and everything else, I mean, gravel roads are tough. I mean, like, we know during election time that people complain, and anytime there's going to be service issues with gravel roads. But until the data shows that it's worth paving that road, and it's actually cost effective to do that, which we've been told over and over and over again that it's not. I mean, I would love to pave Pinery Road, but they're just not plausible. And same as you could argue that for McGuire Road, does the cost fix that for upgrading? It's not. I mean, the gravel road is what the most cost-effective way of doing it is. I think we have to be honest with the people that are out there saying, like, the best we can do is to add more gravel and to find ways to maintain it. But I don't know how we'd ever upgrade roads to a higher standard as far as well, I don't know if you're proposing that we need to tar and chip more roads and to pave more roads. I don't know where it comes from, because I don't know, the data doesn't support that. So we're going to go against the data and say we're going to start upgrading roads that are not cost effective, or what?
Yeah. I guess I'll go back to 2 or 3 councils ago. For instance, we did exactly what I was talking about on the road, Ford Road. And there were reasons why we did that. We went from 15 Highway up to Brown Road. And the reason that actually, one of the main reasons that actually happened was because there were many houses. Well, there were quite a few houses in that area, but they were all right beside the gravel road where the curve was, where all the trucks were slowing down, stopping before they come to 15 Highway. Anyways, we went ahead and did that upgrade. And now I understand that, and it hasn't just happened this year, but I understand that over the years now, when houses in that area sell, they sell for more money. And then 5 years later, when they're reassessed for more at a higher rate. And yes, MPAC tries to say that the reassessment is only because they only reassess because of the house. But I don't think they do, because they also look at how many houses have sold in the last 5 years within 5 miles. And if those houses are on a paved road or or chip and tar or whatever, they're definitely going to sell for more money. So in the end, we get the money back through more taxes anyways. And the exact same thing will happen on Matheson East, for instance. And I'm not saying that this has to happen overnight, but I'm only suggesting that we look at it and discuss it and see if it makes sense. That's all. Jasmine?
Yeah, so the typically we would not recover the money back from taxes, and that it would take to pave and maintain that paved road. Unless it was very, very dense, far beyond the density that we can achieve in Montague.
It would be nice to see what happens, say, on Matheson East in the next 5 years. Or any other road where there was a high density. I understand what you're saying, Jasmine. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out for a discussion.
Always good for discussion, the roads.
Okay, so Andrew, if you wanted to pick out which page we should work on or finish up here now.
Probably the last thing of note was the end of the agenda package, which was an example of borrowing that if the township starts to look at what they would like to do with their municipal complex. So I gave an example, $2 million, but 2% for 20 years. And basically using what Infrastructure Ontario has given me as a current rate, because that most likely would be the most advantageous place for the township to borrow from. And they would lock that in, and annual debt payment on that amount of a loan would be $122,518 as an example. If council and were to look at borrowing versus trying to wait until reserves are built up to do the municipal complex work, which I believe from what we've looked at tonight, the $50,000 we've put in for planning and for engineering will take us probably through next year to be positioning to look at doing some building in the future. So just sort of putting that out there so council could assess the affordability and the advantages of borrowing in that situation.
Okay, I have Ian and Klaus. Ian first.
Yeah, so I did kind of talk to Andrew about this whole scenario regarding, what it is that we're doing with, especially in regards to our aging infrastructure that we don't seem to want to address, and we're kind of bouncing all over the place, all over the map here. I really find it, I don't think it's great practice to turn around and do a bunch of things 2 or 3 different times and not have it done right in the first place. And hence, talking about the roof for the administration building. Now we're talking about, ordering a fire truck and not having a spot to put it. We know that there was health and safety issues that were brought to our attention in the fire department portion of it itself, as well as in the public works department building. And I don't think it's something that we can really keep on pushing to the back burner and just making, little repairs here and little repairs there. I think it's something that we need to look at, and we need to, look at seriously, and, come up with a strategy and a plan to get going on something. And I think, Andrew brought forward a report, I'm going to say probably 2 or 3 councils ago, where it showed the outlook of the reserve fund, going well almost into 2030. And at no point in time did the reserves, and that was including all the roads needs studies stuff that was in there, everything was being met, all the capital assets were being purchased as we had thought about. And at any point in time did the roads or did the reserves reduce any less than, they never went below $3 million. So we're sitting there on this great big chunk of money. Our infrastructure is deteriorating as we speak, and we don't have a plan to put anything together. I think that one of the best, what I would like to propose is that we strike a committee of 2 council members to work with staff to see if there's ways that we can get an understanding what it is, work together, and maybe look at speeding up the process of the infrastructure and the replacement of the buildings that are at the town hall, namely the fire department, the public works and the administration stuff, and getting it up to grade, and see if we can't put something together that is that works and that is cost effective for the taxpayers in the township. I think that there's options out there, as Andrew just kind of alluded to. You know, we can actually borrow some money, and the repayment schedule is very affordable. We're already contributing half of what the repayment schedule is right now without even trying. And if this was a non-COVID year, if you saw the assessments and everything else that would increase from the government on a normal year, I don't think that we'd have a problem covering those expenses. So I would like to propose that we have a group or 2 council members, a striking committee, work with staff and come up with something, a couple of different options that we can present, over the next probably couple of months, and see if we can get some consensus on it. I think it'll go a little smoother, maybe a little quicker, and see what we can make happen.
Are you suggesting that this striking committee could move this forward without all of council just doing it, Ian?
No, as what I'm suggesting is that the striking committee work with staff and come up with a couple different scenarios and plans that can be brought forward to council.
Okay. No, I just wondered so you're suggesting that the striking committee would do this as opposed to council?
Yeah, they'll come up with a couple different options working with staff.
Okay, Claus?
I agree with Councillor Straight. I just want to add my own personal thought into it. We have a good hefty reserve. Okay, I see nothing wrong with using some of that reserve, but the reserve is there in case of huge emergencies, such as equipment failure and so forth. So we want to be a little bit careful. I am not opposed to borrowing money. Our council has done this before, and I think we need to move on our buildings. The fire, as we discussed, we're going to get a new fire truck, a pumper, and we've got no place to put it in safely. And that, so this building issue needs to move forward quickly. And if we need to borrow money to move it forward, then I'm all for that.
Okay, Jeff?
I mean, interesting ideas and definitely great for discussion. I mean, I find we're in the starting process of looking at the buildings. I feel we're moving in the direction. I mean, I sympathize because I mean, once again, coming from one of those things where, coming into the sort of the government world of and thinking that, from a private background, you're thinking that things should work a little faster, and government world never works as fast as you ever really want it to. But I find we're moving in the right direction, I feel, and we're starting to talk about getting the sort of the studies or the contracting in place, with the engineers in place to see how we're going to do the space of things and how big we can do it, where the costing is. I find we're moving in that direction. So I don't really understand where an extra sort of committee of councillors that are they to discuss that when we're really trying to get those tenders out there, so we can kind of start that process as far as getting what buildings are out there, and letting, I don't know what more we would have as far as in play with that. Like, we want our staff to go out and figure out what it's going to cost to do these things, have the consultant groups that we're doing to build the size of it, and then figure out, the next step of grants and everything else. Because I mean, I'm all for borrowing for these kind of things. This is smart borrowing, in my point of view, as far as, especially when you're for buildings, especially if we're gonna, we can pay it back in 20 years or less for something that's going to last for many, many, many years after that. But I I think we're moving in the right direction, but maybe I'm open for discussion, obviously, for if we don't think we're moving in that right direction. But we're not going to have we're not going to start building something in 5 months from now. I mean, that's just not the way the government works, unfortunately. So, and we need to have grant funding in place, because we're not going to just do it from reserves and borrowing. That is, to me, is not responsible on our side. I think we need to be prudent and to make sure that we're going after grant funding.
So I happen to agree with what you're saying, Jeff, and also Ian. Like I'm also in favor of moving this whole thing forward faster by borrowing. So I'm also on board there, but I would rather like to think that all 5 of us should be involved in the discussions, not just 2. I agree that I think we're moving forward in a very positive way. And I think that has happened because we've had so many great discussions by all of council and our staff. So I'm just not sure how effective that would be, having only 2 people working with staff. I'm very much in favor of continuing discussions, but I'd like to see all 5 of us being there at the table. Jasmine?
So to date, based on our discussion that we had at the end of June, staff has applied to the Green Municipal Fund in order to fund what would be essentially a feasibility comparison between a renovation and replacement that would also include design and engineering and a space needs assessment. So we've applied to the Green Municipal Fund grant application to do that work, which would fund 50% of those studies. It does take a little while to get responses from those grant programs. If council wanted to do it on a more accelerated schedule, we can certainly do that and pay the full cost of the engineering and design. There's no way of getting around engineering and design, which does take a while. I think if council is interested in looking at options to accelerate the facility work, we could bring, like as Andrew noted in his report, we could bring back that information. We are expecting a report to move forward next week, next Tuesday, related to the ICIP, the use of the ICIP resiliency funding. So, I mean, keeping in mind that we received our building condition assessment early this year. I think it was in February of this year. So we have moved forward in also trying to achieve grant funding for a lot of this as well, which is an additional direction from council. So we have a grant application out there to do some of the initial planning work of this work. I think if council's interested in accelerating that, we can bring forward a report as Andrew has suggested.
And I personally wasn't necessarily saying that I would like to see us accelerate it, because I agree with what Jeff just said. I think we've been moving forward fairly well, and I'd like to see us kind of at the same pace there. So I wasn't suggesting that we speed things up.
And if council wants to explore the idea of a working group, which is not an unusual model, I can certainly bring back a report that speaks to that, and how that may work. But, you know, I do want to assure you that, you know, we're not, as we've discussed in June, you know, we did apply for that grant project and trying to move the aspects of this forward.
So why wouldn't we continue in that direction then?
Well, we can have a discussion about it. It's up to council.
At what point? When would we do that?
Well, council can direct staff to bring forward a report, and we can do that.
Okay, Ian, I saw your hand, and then Claus.
And this is kind of what I'm getting at. It's not that we want to exclude anybody from council from from making it. But having a striking committee or committee that's going to work with staff to bring back multiple options to be discussed at council is what I'm talking about. We haven't any idea what we're talking about yet. So how are we doing engineering studies and everything else? We don't even have a clue. We haven't even had a conversation about what it is, and council hasn't decided about what the options are or not, whether we're doing renos or anything else. That hasn't even been decided. We can't even come up with that motion. We've been sitting here for almost 6 months.
So the grant application that we completed is a study that would study the feasibility of renovations or replacement and provide us with options for either one. That could fit into design and engineering.
So we have to have a study that why can't contractors come in and give you a pricing on replacement versus upgrades when you decide what it is that you want? It happens every single day in the real world.
I thought that council already decided to do this study.
Yes, council passed the motion to apply for the grant funding to do that in June.
That's what I thought. Claus?
Yeah, I think we need to let staff do what they're doing right now with this grant application and come up with the proposals of renovation versus new and so forth. We agreed to do that. We need to follow through with that. Not disagreeing with Councillor Straight's ideas and so forth, but we're jumping to a different train of thought, a different stream of how we're going to do it. Let the staff finish what they're asked to do.
Okay. Anything else then? But I'm going to go back to you then, Andrew, if you want to move on here.
That's probably kind of gets us to the end of the agenda that I'm aware of. And from there, I think we'll take all these notes and red flags and input, which we've gotten lots of, which is great, and put all that into the second draft of the budget. And once we know the other things, information from the county and the school board, et cetera, we should have a pretty good picture of where we're headed with our budget coming together the next meeting.
Okay, then. So before we move on then, Jasmine, I'm going to go to you and ask if you could check to see if we have any questions from our live streaming.
I don't have any on my email, but I can just double check. Our Facebook page. Just give me 1 second.
Speaking of red flags, your flag is really flying well there tonight, Ian.
Yeah, it is.
Still going in the same direction though.
So I have no questions from public.
Okay, then moving on, we have a motion here moved by Karen Jennings and seconded by Jeff Carroll that the direction given by council regarding the first draft 2021 budget being presented in this report be incorporated into the second draft 2021 budget to be presented at a future meeting. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And then before we adjourn, just like a couple of our councillors said about Stephen, I wanted to say exactly the same thing about you, Andrew. You've done an amazing job already for us and helped to present the budget in a pretty simple way. And I feel very, very confident that the second draft will work out also. So I just want to commend you on what you've done for us and with the backup from all of our other head staff and Jasmine, yourself. So I just want to commend all of the staff for presenting this budget to us the way you have. So if there's no other comments or questions from council, thanks to council for all your questions and comments. It was great. I do have a motion to adjourn. And this was moved by Ian Straight and seconded by Claus Vandermeer that this meeting do now adjourn at
9:07.
9:07. Thank you. 9:07. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, that's good. So